Day 11 in the Advent calendar, my friends. Yesterday we talked about Ranger builds, Outsiders, and Archons Part 2, Ranger tactics. Today we'll talk about Grenadier skills, ambushes, and Grenadier tactics.
The time has come to reclaim our world. Welcome back, Commander.
Incoming transmission.
Day 11, Strategy, Grenadier skills. The Grenadier, I think, is the perfect soldier for supporting the damage output of your squad. And we're going to go over these skills with that in mind, especially for setting up targets for focused fire. So let's begin. All Grenadiers gain a launch grenade naturally. They have a greater range for all grenades, explosives, and support grenades like smoke grenades and flashbangs. And they have a greater capacity for grenades. They get a free grenade pocket, where you can always carry one grenade. That is very nice. Getting those cover-destroying grenades exactly where you want them is so good, and being able to support your squad with smokes and flashbangs from longer ranges is really nice, allowing you to position yourself safer while still getting in those key 100% chance to hit, 100% chance to be effective, and cover-destroying grenades. Alright, so moving on to the choices. I think the first two choices for the Grenadier are no-brainers. The first choice is Blast Padding versus Shredder. Blast Padding grants 1 point of armor and 66% damage reduction versus explosives, and Shredder causes all your cannon attacks to shred enemy armor. Advanced cannon technology will shred additional armor. So higher tech cannons, weapons, will shred more armor. Shredder takes this one no contest. Blast Padding is defensive and passive. 1 point of armor and resistance to explosions may sound nice, but the number of times you're going to use that is going to be minimal compared to the number of cannon attacks you're going to make against armored targets. So since there's going to be a lot of armor going around in the game, and getting rid of it is going to make all attacks against those enemies more effective, Shredder is a no-brainer and far beats the Blast Padding, which is incredibly niche. And it only works in the worst case scenario, which is you getting hit. So best to avoid getting hit at all and make your attacks, which you want to use a lot of attacks and you want them to hit a lot, more effective. And everyone else's attacks, since it shreds armor. Wow, so good. All right, choice number 2, Demolition versus Suppression. Demolition says damage a special attack that damages or destroys your target's cover. Requires 2 ammo, 3 turn cooldown. Suppression imposes a 50-point aim penalty on your target, and if they move, it triggers reaction fire, kind of like a single target Overwatch, that if they don't trigger the Overwatch, they suffer 50 points of aim penalty. If you're damaged, you lose the suppression and they're free, and multiple suppressions stack the aim penalty, so that can get really intense aim penalty. Here, I'm going to say it's also no contest. Suppression crushes Demolition. Demolition, damage or destroy a target's cover. That's nice. You have to use some other person's attack to follow up, so it's not really like a whole action. They'll just move to cover. If it only damages their cover, then it was a complete waste. It uses up a good bit of ammo, and it takes 3 whole turns. And it has a 3-turn cooldown, so it takes you can't use it all the time. Suppression, on the other hand, I didn't hear that there was a cooldown. It is always effective. Either you get a free attack. Admittedly, it might not be the most accurate attack in the world, but still, either you get an attack or they suffer a 50-point aim penalty. Now, if they have things they can do that aren't attacking or moving, you should be aware of that when suppressing them. But still, if they do that, don't bother to suppress them unless you really don't want to get shot by them and you want to force them to use a psi power or something else, some other weird ability they do. Also, it tends to have a strong impact on the AI when it's suppressed. which you can use to your advantage, but you'll have to see how that works in XCOM 2 because I haven't seen the AI in action. Alright, your third choice is heavy ordnance versus hollow targeting. I have strong feelings about this one, but and I'm going to give the nod to hollow targeting, but I can see heavy ordnance having its place. Heavy ordnance says the grenade in your grenade-only slot gains an additional use. So one extra use of a grenade is pretty good. It is not game-breaking. Hollow targeting says any single target attack, including suppression, applies a mark that increases all XCOM attacks against all further attacks against that target by 15 aim. By 15 aim. So mark the target, they are 15% more likely to be hit by all attacks that follow up. You can suppress someone, and remember, suppression is guaranteed to work. It doesn't have a chance to hit. Suppression is just, you just pick a target and you suppress. So it's always going to work no matter what the range. Hollow targeting makes suppression infinitely superior, even if it weren't already, to demolition. Hollow targeting will let you increase the accuracy of your own attacks. Hollow targeting lasts quite a while. It makes all of your squad mates' attacks more accurate. So good. Significantly better than a single grenade use. But you might take the extra grenade use, depending on how difficult your missions are and how many enemies you face. Against lower numbers of enemies, grenades are better. But the more and more enemies that will stack up on the map over the course of the game, the more you need your regular attacks to be buffed, not your limited use grenades. The next choice is between Volatile Mix and Chain Shot. Volatile Mix says increase your grenade radius by 1 and the damage they deal by 2. This does not affect how they destroy cover at all. So they'll still destroy cover at about the same rate. Chain Shot says take a standard attack with a -15 penalty. If it hits, take another attack for free. 2 ammo required for your 2 attacks, and a 3-turn cooldown. Chain Shot, I'm just going to get the nod, primarily because it lets you attack multiple times in one round, which is really, really strong, especially combined with hollow targeting and Shredder, which grant additional bonuses to all your attacks. So I imagine Chain Shot could reduce a target's armor twice and deal double damage to it and make it easier for your second attack to hit and all other people's attacks to hit. So Chain Shot, incredibly powerful when comboed with hollow targeting and Shredder. Volatile Mix has its synergies, but the big thing Volatile Mix adds is that 1 extra radius on your grenades. That's going to let you include more targets or more targets cover when you throw a grenade. But that's just not as good as dealing twice as much damage to a single target. The extra damage from Volatile Mix is nice, but it's not going to change the game for you at all. So I suggest Chain Shot almost every time. Consider a Volatile Mix if grenades are doing a lot of work for you. Your 5th choice is between Salvo and Hail of Bullets. In this case, I'm actually going to give the nod to Salvo, which says launching or throwing grenades or using heavy weapons as your first action won't end your turn. That is incredibly good, even if you can only use it a couple of times a map. The number of times you'll be able to use it if you equip a heavy weapon suit, because those seem to be tied to the suits, not the particular soldiers. Then your Grenadier should have at least 1 use, maybe 2 from the suit, depending. And then you can carry you're going to be carrying at least 1 grenade, maybe 2. So I'm going to say you get to use this 2 to 4 times a mission, where you launch or throw a grenade or use a heavy weapon, and then you do something else. Best used, I think, to destroy someone's cover with a grenade and then annihilate them with a Chain Shot, shredding, hollow targeting attack. While they're exposed and they're likely to be critically hit and their defense is down, this is exactly what you want this for, and it makes for a kind of rampage button, as I suspect there is no cooldown, and you can toss out all of your grenades in a couple turns while throwing fire out there. It's just crazy. It's crazy good. And you could also throw a grenade and move back. You could, if the enemy rolls up on you. Anyway, very powerful even if you only get to use it a couple times, and it leads a bit of credence to taking heavy ordnance over hollow targeting, but I still think hollow targeting is better. The other choice here is Hail of Bullets, which is a standard attack that is guaranteed to hit your target. Uses up 3 ammo, has a 5-turn cooldown. While this doesn't pack the punch over in a single turn that Salvo does, and doesn't let you do anything you normally can't do, like throw a grenade and then attack, a guaranteed hit is it's going to be really good all the time. There's going to be a lot of times where you're like, oh, I just need this attack to hit. Oh, I have Hail of Bullets, done. Since it'll work at any range, you can attack enemies that normally you would never even consider attacking, like that 3% chance to hit that dude who's hunkering behind heavy cover. Doesn't matter, guaranteed to hit. Those flying enemies that are super far away and bombarding you, doesn't matter, guaranteed to hit. You'll find Hail of Bullets pretty damn good, and you'll always have a use for it. But I think Salvo is better because it gives you the ability to do things you normally couldn't do. I can deal with enemies that are far away. I can move back. Like, I know how to deal with these things. Salvo lets me deal with other things that I normally couldn't. But Hail of Bullets, not bad. Your last choice is going to be between Saturation Fire and Rupture. Saturation Fire, you fire a narrow cone attack, and everything in that cone gets a standard attack against it. Every enemy, no matter how many there are, probably friendlies too. And it deals damage to random cover within the cone. It requires 3 ammo and has a 5-turn cooldown. So Saturation Fire, you'll get to use like once per fight. You're probably only going to manage to hit 2, maybe 3 targets at most with it. And then hopefully it'll inflict Shredder and hollow targeting on them if you have those. But it's basically just it's kind of normal. It's kind of standard. It doesn't do anything that you can't normally do. Since it only hits 2 targets and it kind of spreads the damage out, it's not as good as focus damage. So Rupture is going to get the thumbs up here because Rupture says an attack that deals critical damage and increases further damage against the target by 3 from all sources. Rupture is the ultimate kill this thing squad focused fire ability. Obviously you have to land the Rupture attack or it's a complete waste. But it will do critical damage, which is awesome. And it will shred and apply hollow targeting. And then every other attack that hits this thing is going to do 3 extra damage, including lightning hands and it's just insane. Grenades that can't possibly miss. Rupture lets you burst down a single target so much better than anything else. I would assume Rupture has like a 5-turn cooldown. And maybe it uses all your ammo as well. I don't actually know. But Rupture is hands down better than Saturation Fire in that you will often face incredibly strong single targets that you need to kill, like Sectopods or Ethereals or Andromedons. And anything that increases damage against them is going to be amazing. And Rupture does a ton of damage with your critical hit attack, and then it decreases their damage. Plus, since it can apply Shredder and hollow targeting, which I pretty much always suggest you have, there's just no other choice. So, that is it for Grenadier skills.
Incoming transmission.
Day 11, Tactics, Ambushes. What I mean by an ambush is when you prepare in advance to engage your enemy. Now, obviously, this is easy when you have concealment. It's easier when an enemy squad doesn't know you're there, but it's still possible when they do. It's just that you have prepared to attack on your next turn. So, what is required? Knowledge of the enemy is pretty important. You have to know that they're there. When you're concealed, it's very easy because you have a lot of incoming information, and the enemy does not. When you are just moving around the map at post-concealment, you don't know that much about the enemy, but you do know what directions they're probably going to come from. It's not going to be behind you where you've already been, most likely. It's going to be off to the sides, more likely directly in front of you. Positioning yourself for an ambush, also key. You want the best defense, you want the highest heights, and you want to be able to use all of your abilities without inconveniencing yourself. If you're taking that saturation fire cone attack, you don't want your ranger to be in front of you where you want to use it, or you don't want him you don't want him slashing someone and then you destroying the cover that he was hiding behind. So good positioning is key for an ambush. Just make sure you can unload all your guns without anyone getting in the way of each other. And you want the best statistical bonuses from your locations as possible. And then the question is, to Overwatch or something else? If ammo's not a consideration and you're not going to be the one firing the first attack, then by all means Overwatch. But some classes, like the Grenadier, may need specific amounts of ammunition to pull off some of their abilities, and you may not find Overwatching to be feasible. If you can't Overwatch, then hunker or find a good position to sit in. Or you should be the initial attacker. So the first shot is key when you're in concealment or your targets don't know you're there. It's good to lead off with a grenade and deal damage to everyone, shred some armor. It can be even better to focus on the most dangerous or annoying enemy with one powerful, likely to be critical hit attack. Because you can save that grenade to destroy cover wherever the enemy runs to. Whereas if you use the grenade first, they're all going to wind up behind cover. So choose wisely. And I strongly suggest that whenever you move, you think about where an enemy squad is likely to come from if one did next turn, and you pretend that it's an ambush. And you pretty much always use a lot of Overwatch while moving around, and just pretend like it is going to be an ambush, and maybe it will be if you get lucky.
Incoming transmission.
Day 11, Disposition, Grenadier Tactics and Builds. So while it took me a lot of time to outline the Grenadier skills, when it comes to builds, I can only think of 2 builds, and they're basically just variants of each other. So I'm going to call this the Havoc build. And the way it works is you focus on setting up enemies for focused fire from the rest of your squad. You're going to take Shredder, Suppression, and Hollow Targeting every time. If you can't if it's not time for the squad to focus fire someone down, then you're suppressing one of the more dangerous targets. Not targets generally that have mental powers, not disruptive targets. You want to suppress the really threatening, hard-hitting ones like Sectopods and Mutons, Andromedons. So that aim penalty really is affecting the only choices they have to act. When you do need to kill something, it's finally time for the squad to turn all their attention onto that Sectopod. Shredder, Suppression, Hollow Targeting. Shredder and Hollow Targeting go and play key roles in weakening, softening it up, and making sure that your friends can actually land their attacks. Chain Shot. I suggest always taking Chain Shot. It's going to let you shred twice in one turn while still applying Hollow Targeting, and Hollow Targeting is going to make that second Chain Shot attack more effective. Where the choices are, the last two choices between Salvo and Hail of Bullets and Saturation Fire and Rupture, that's going to speak more to your playstyle. I am going to suggest Salvo and Rupture, but you could go Hail of Bullets and Saturation Fire if you felt like it. The reason I'm going to suggest Salvo is because the occasional ability to belt out an explosive and then attack combos really well with Chain Shot, among other things, but also with Rupture against targets whose cover you've destroyed. Then you can guarantee or make much more likely the chance that you'll hit with that Rupture. And Salvo is just really powerful. It can kind of multiply your ability to attack in a given turn a couple times per mission, and I think you'll find that that burst of aggressive activity is more powerful than the Hail of Bullets guaranteed hit, which you can use multiple times. You can use about once per fight, is the way I would put it, with a 5-turn cooldown. The Salvo you can use 2 or 3 times in the hardest fight in a row. So I'm going to go with Salvo as being the force multiplier, even if its limited uses, is so good. And then I'm going to encourage you to take Rupture again, because when you hit that Sectopod with a Rupture, not only is it going to take 9 damage or whatever, but every other attack is going to deal like 7 instead of 4 and like 5 instead of 2, which is going to burn through those 40 health or whatever really fast. So Salvo and Rupture would be my choices towards the end, but Hail of Bullets and Saturation Fire have their place, especially if you're not as concerned about single big targets and you want to take out lots of little targets faster. Then Saturation Fire and Hail of Bullets are the way to go. Still, that's probably not going to be the case in XCOM 2, so stick with Shredder, Suppression, Hollow Targeting, Chain Shot, Salvo, and Rupture. I feel like that is the one true build for Grenadiers, and I'm very excited to play it myself, as that's going to be really powerful. This combination of abilities, I wouldn't suggest bringing more than one Grenadier, unless you're going to have one that kind of sets the other one up, or it's just not necessary. It could be fun and really good, and if you're just going to blast your way through levels, maybe that is what you need to bring. Because with that many grenades and the ability to salvo, you certainly could just wreck 2 or 3 pods off of the power of the Grenadiers, and then maybe whatever's left isn't strong enough to stand up against you. Plus the double suppression, yeah, I take it back. Take 2 Grenadiers. Take 3. But that is my suggestion for Grenadier tactics and builds. Make them the Giant Slayer. One note about grenades. The reason this build makes the most sense to me is because grenade damage doesn't scale as well as your standard cannon damage. It has limited uses, and they generally have shorter range than your cannon attacks, even for the Grenadier. If that doesn't turn out to be true, say grenade damage is exceptional at some points in the game, or you gain more uses of grenades so they become fairly common, then you could consider more of the demolition track to be significantly more powerful, but I do not believe that will be the case. Alright friends, that's it for day 11. If you enjoyed this content, please go ahead and like this video. If you'd like to see the next Advent Calendar video as soon as it comes out, please subscribe to my channel. Tomorrow we'll be talking about Psi operative skills, Traitors, and Outsiders Part 2, and Psi operative synergies, as builds aren't really how this class works.